Disclaimer: this content is for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised. I never thought I'd see it with my own eyes. Even now, thinking back to that night, my heart pounds just as hard as it did then. It started like any other evening, just me and my husband, Mark, sitting in the living room, scrolling through our phones, the soft hum of the TV in the background. We'd been together for years, and while things weren't exactly exciting anymore, they were comfortable, safe. At least, that's what I believed. But then Mark looked up at me, his expression unreadable, and said something that made my stomach drop. At first, I laughed, thinking he was joking. "You're not serious, right?" I asked. But the way he held my gaze, calm, steady, waiting, told me otherwise. My breath hitched. I had always prided myself on being open-minded, on trusting my husband completely. But this was something I never expected. A suggestion so out of the ordinary, so completely outside of what I thought our marriage was built on, that I genuinely didn't know how to respond. I searched his face for a hint of hesitation, a smirk that would tell me this was all just a joke. But there was none. My mind raced with questions. Was this something he had been thinking about for a long time? What if I said no? Would it change the way he saw me? The way we saw each other? More importantly, if I said yes, where would it lead? I glanced at my phone, my fingers hovering over the screen as if searching for an answer. But what could I possibly look up? There was no guidebook for this, no easy way to know if I was about to make the biggest mistake of my life or step into something that could change everything between us forever. So, what would you do? If the person you love, the person you trust the most, asked you for something that could shake the very foundation of your relationship, would you agree? Or would you walk away, knowing things might never be the same again? Let me know in the comments what you'd do in my situation. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to hear what happened next. Because trust me, things only got more complicated from here. I stared at Mark, my mind spinning. The room suddenly felt smaller, the air heavier, as if his words had changed something in an instant. I wanted to believe I had misheard him, that maybe he had meant something completely different. But deep down, I knew I hadn't. My heart pounded as I tried to form a response, but nothing felt right. Mark wasn't the kind of man to say things just for shock value. He was steady, thoughtful, sometimes too much so. And that was what scared me the most. If he had brought this up, that meant he had been thinking about it for a while, maybe even struggling with it. And yet, until this moment, I had no idea. A part of me wanted to brush it off, change the subject, pretend like this conversation had never happened. But another part of me, a quieter, more uncertain part, couldn't shake the curiosity. Not because I was necessarily considering it, but because I needed to understand why. Why now? Why us? I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "Mark, where's this coming from?" I finally asked. My voice sounded smaller than I expected. He hesitated, rubbing his hands together the way he did when he was nervous. "I don't know," he admitted. "I guess I've just been thinking about things, about us, about how routine everything has become." I swallowed hard. Routine. The word stung, even though I knew it was true. Our days had fallen into a predictable rhythm: work, dinner, TV, bed. Weekends weren't much different. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't exciting either. Was that what this was about? A search for something new? Something thrilling? Still, I wasn't convinced. "But why this?" I pressed, trying to make sense of it. "Why now?" Mark exhaled, looking down at the floor. "Because I saw something," he said finally. "And it made me think, maybe we've been looking at things all wrong." A chill ran down my spine. What had he seen? My mind raced with possibilities, none of them making sense. I wanted to ask, to push him for an answer, but something about the way he said it made me pause. He wasn't just talking about an idea, he was talking about something real, something he had witnessed firsthand. I felt a lump form in my throat. What was he about to tell me? And more importantly, did I even want to know? I stared at Mark, waiting, dreading what he was about to say next. His words hung in the air, heavy and unspoken, as if he was deciding how much he should actually tell me. My fingers curled around the edge of the couch, my pulse quickening. "What did you see?" I finally asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Mark hesitated, rubbing the back of his neck. He looked uneasy, like he wasn't sure if he should tell me at all. And that only made me more anxious. "It's not something I was expecting," he said slowly, but once I saw it, I couldn't stop thinking about it. His words sent a shiver down my spine. What could possibly shake him like this? Mark wasn't the type to get rattled easily. He was logical, steady, the kind of person who analyzed everything before making a decision. But right now, he seemed different, unsettled. I shifted uncomfortably. "Mark, just say it." He looked up at me, searching my face, as if trying to figure out if I could handle it. "It happened last weekend," he admitted, "when I told you I was working late." I felt my stomach tighten. "You weren't at work?" He shook his head. I was somewhere else, and I saw something that changed the way I look at everything. The way he said it sent my mind racing with possibilities. Had he found out something about me? Had he seen someone he knew? Was he keeping a secret? My thoughts spiraled, each one worse than the last. I swallowed hard. "What exactly did you see?" Mark hesitated again, and for the first time since this conversation started, I saw a flicker of something in his eyes. Excitement, maybe? Or fear? I couldn't tell. "I can't just explain it," he said finally. "You have to see it for yourself." My body tensed. That wasn't what I expected him to say. Why couldn't he just tell me? If it was so life-changing, if it made him rethink our entire relationship, why was he making me wait? I didn't know what was worse, the fact that he was keeping something from me or the fact that, deep down, I was terrified to find out what it was. What would you do? If your partner told you they had seen something that could change everything, would you demand answers? Or would you walk away, afraid of what the truth might be? Let me know in the comments. Mark's words echoed in my mind. You have to see it for yourself. A deep, uneasy feeling settled in my chest. He wasn't telling me everything, and that scared me more than anything. What could he have seen that was so impossible to explain? Why was he acting like this was something I needed to witness with my own eyes? I tried to steady my breathing. "Mark, this isn't fair," I said. "You drop something like this on me, but you won't even tell me what it is?" His jaw tightened. "It's not that simple." "Then make it simple," I shot back. "Because right now, all I know is that you weren't where you said you were. You saw something that's apparently so huge that it's making you question everything, and I'm just supposed to follow along blindly?" He exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. "I know how it sounds, but I promise you, I'm not trying to be vague. I just, I don't think you'll believe me unless you see it for yourself." His words sent another chill down my spine. Believe him? I suddenly realized something. It wasn't just that he was keeping a secret. He thought I wouldn't accept whatever this was. I clenched my fists, my mind scrambling for possibilities. Was this about another person? Had he stumbled onto something illegal? Or was it something even stranger, something that didn't make sense in the world we knew? The worst part was, even though every instinct told me to push back, to demand answers now, I felt something else creeping in. Curiosity. As much as I hated the way he was handling this, I couldn't deny that a part of me needed to know. Fine, I said, crossing my arms. Show me. Mark looked at me, his eyes searching mine, as if making sure I really meant it. Then, after a long pause, he nodded. Tomorrow night. A wave of anticipation and dread washed over me. What was I about to walk into? And once I saw it, would I ever be able to look at my life the same way again? If you were in my position, would you go through with it? Or would you rather stay in the dark? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe, because trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. The rest of the night passed in a blur. I barely slept, my mind running in circles, trying to piece together what Mark wasn't telling me. Every possibility I thought of only led to more questions. If this was something so unbelievable, why was he so certain I needed to see it? And if I did, would it change everything between us? By the time morning came, I had convinced myself that I was overreacting. Maybe I had let my imagination get the best of me. Mark wasn't the type to play mind games, and despite how cryptic he was being, I trusted him. Didn't I? But then something happened that made my stomach drop. Mark left early for work, kissing my forehead before walking out the door like everything was normal. But as soon as he was gone, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Don't go with him tonight. You don't want to see what he's about to show you. I stared at the message, my heart pounding. My first instinct was to assume it was a prank, maybe even some kind of scam, but how would a random number know about tonight? I quickly typed back, "Who is this?" No response. A chill crept up my spine. I reread the text, my hands shaking slightly. Someone out there knew something. But who? And why did they want to warn me? For a split second, I considered calling Mark. But what would I even say? That a mysterious number had told me not to trust him? That I was suddenly doubting everything because of one vague message? He'd probably just tell me to ignore it, that it was nothing. But what if it wasn't? I tried to go about my day like normal, but the text sat in the back of my mind, a warning I couldn't shake. As the hours ticked by, a terrible thought started forming. What if Mark wasn't the only one keeping secrets? By the time evening rolled around, my nerves were completely shot. Mark came home acting completely normal, like nothing had changed. But for me, everything felt different. He noticed. "You okay?" he asked, tilting his head. "You seem off." I forced a smile. "I'm fine, just tired." He nodded, but I could tell he wasn't convinced. "You're still coming, right?" I hesitated. I thought about the text, about the warning, about the fact that whoever had sent it knew something I didn't. Then I made my choice. I picked up my coat, my pulse racing. "Let's go." So tell me, what would you do? Would you ignore the warning and go anyway? Or would you trust the message and walk away? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe, because what happens next, you won't see coming. The car ride was eerily silent. Mark's hands gripped the wheel, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. I sat beside him, my heart pounding, my thoughts racing back to the text message. Don't go with him tonight. You don't want to see what he's about to show you. But it was too late to turn back now. We drove for nearly an hour away from the city, down empty roads that grew darker with each passing mile. A part of me wanted to ask again what we were doing, where we were going, but I was afraid of the answer. I could feel the weight of something unspoken between us, something heavy that neither of us wanted to address. Finally, Mark pulled into a secluded clearing. The headlights illuminated an old, abandoned building, its windows shattered, its walls covered in graffiti. My stomach tightened. "Mark, what is this place?" He turned off the engine and exhaled. "Just trust me," he said softly. Then he got out of the car. I hesitated before following him. The air was cold, the silence almost deafening. My footsteps echoed against the cracked pavement as I trailed behind him. Every instinct screamed at me to leave, but I had to know. Mark led me through a rusted door into a dimly lit hallway. The place smelled of damp wood and dust, like it had been abandoned for years. Then, without a word, he pulled out his phone and played a video, and my entire body went numb. It was me, on the screen. Me, in our house, going about my day, making coffee, talking on the phone, even sitting in bed reading. But the part that made my blood run cold? I wasn't alone. In every single clip, there was someone else in the background. A shadow. A figure I had never noticed before. Standing behind me. Watching me. I gasped, stumbling back. What is this? Where did you get this? Mark's expression was grim. I didn't record this, he said. It was sent to me, and I think whoever sent that text to you is the same person who's been watching you. A chill ran down my spine. I had been so focused on doubting Mark that I never considered the real danger. So tell me, if you were me, what would you do next? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe, because this story, it's far from over. My breath came in short, shallow gasps. I gripped Mark's arm, my mind struggling to process what I had just seen. The figure in the videos, it had always been there, watching me, standing in the shadows, and I had never noticed. Mark's eyes met mine, his expression tight with fear and something else, determination. We need to go, he said firmly. Now. I didn't argue. Every instinct told me to run, to get as far away from this place as possible. But as we turned to leave, my phone vibrated in my pocket. My heart lurched. I already knew who it was before I even looked. Another text. It's too late. You already saw. A cold shiver ran down my spine. My fingers shook as I turned off my phone, refusing to read any more. Mark grabbed my hand, pulling me toward the car, his grip tight and protective. We didn't speak as he drove back home, the road stretching endlessly before us. Neither of us knew what to say. What could you say after something like that? When we finally reached our house, I hesitated before stepping inside. For the first time, the place that had always felt safe now felt violated. Had they been here? Were they still watching? Mark placed a reassuring hand on my back. We'll figure this out, he promised. But as I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, I wasn't so sure. Someone out there knew us, knew me, better than